It's good to see everyone out this morning. Everybody coming from down Sevierville area has had a little bit of a traffic issue. They had a couple of big tankers that was going down the road about 5 miles an hour. And so Brother Wayne had to go back and go down, hit the interstate at 407. I had to take I had to take a detour on the closed road that says you got to take the other road for a detour. So, yeah. So it's one of those things is that sometimes you got to improvise on the fly. But we'll be down in Genesis chapter 35 this morning. Genesis chapter 35. And got through 34 last week, I believe. Then when we get to 35, we'll start. And 35 and 36 has got a lot of just genealogy in it. And so we'll probably make it through it pretty fast. But then 37 gets back to the interesting part about Joseph and him being a type of Christ. So hopefully we'll get that going here before we finish up today. So Genesis 35. Anybody got any things on their mind before we get started? Heart? Okay. 35 it says, "And God said unto Jacob, Arise and go up to Bethel and dwell there and make there an altar unto God that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau thy brother. Then Jacob said unto his household and to all that were with him, Put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments, and let us arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make there an altar unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went. And they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hand, and all their earrings which are in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob." So here we see that after Jacob dealt with his brother Esau, and basically they decided to try to go around the situation. You know, he was very scared of Esau and what he might do to him because of what had happened, and he had done all that stuff. Well, finally, God, and then of course his daughter basically got raped in the last chapter, and basically his sons ended up killing the whole city of men and taking everything prisoner. And then from that standpoint, he was scared to stay in that area, so he's now hightailing it back to Bethel, which is where he should have been to begin with, because that's where God told him to go. And so he kept delaying, and so here we finally see that he finally said, "Put away all these gods, we're going back home," finally. And when you start thinking about it, it's just like us as Christians, okay? You know, we got to admit that God is in control, and basically where he wants us is where we need to be. Put away all the other things that come between us and God, all the other gods that are there, and get ourselves clean and ask for forgiveness. And then we all need to get cleaned up. We need to go back to Bethel, where basically we should have been going to begin with, and from there on go from that standpoint. So he buries all these gods and gets rid of them. And of course, it looks like they had plenty because they had to give them all their earrings and everything else, and they gave them up. And but he finally realizes God's got everything in control if he just lets go. And and I don't know if anybody had ever heard that song before. There's an old Gold City song back in the 80s, 90s that says, "Under Control." And under control, the winds obey his will. When he speaks, the storms will cease. Oh, don't be afraid, though the billows may roll. God's almighty hand is still in command, so rejoice in your soul, for it's under his control. And when we realize that everything, if we just let our will go, God's got it under control if we just let it. And Jacob finally gets to that point, and he goes back home to Bethel, and then he starts on his way, but then trouble's fixing to hit him again here shortly. In verse 6, it says, So Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built there an altar and called the place El Bethel, because God appeared unto him when he fled from the face of his brother. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak, and the name of it was called Allon Bacuth. Now, think about that statement a little bit. All of a sudden, just in the middle of all this discussion, the nurse of Rebekah is mentioned, which is his mother, his nurse. Rebekah's death is not mentioned until you get all the way over and find out where she's buried. But her death is not even mentioned. And when you read that, it sort of says, my gut feel is that, and like I said, this is purely that I can't find anybody that really has a good answer for it. I mean, somebody else may have one, but basically all of a sudden just her nurse is mentioned and she died. And apparently his mom probably had passed away. And then maybe her nurse came over to Jacob instead of being with Isaac. I don't know. I have no clue. But yeah, the weeping. But why it just mentions that, why God chose to mention it as an important part to capture through Moses, I don't really know. I mean, I looked it up. I tried to find something. I don't know if anybody has ever saw that or not, but it's just sort of like, oh, by the way, Deborah, she died. And so one of those things, sometimes it's in the wisdom of God. Maybe you can ask him when you get there. But she passed away, and they buried her. And then God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padanaram and blessed him. And God said unto him, Thy name is Jacob, thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. So he's reiterating what he's already told him before. From this point forward, your name is Israel. God said unto him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. And the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed after thee will I give the land. And God went up from him in that place where he called to him, or at Bethel. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, even a pillar of stone, and he poured a drink offering thereon, and he poured oil thereon. And Jacob called the name of the place God spake unto him, Bethel. So the God of Bethel is basically the El Bethel was what was that was. But we see here that he reiterates the covenant he made with Abraham, the covenant he made with Isaac, that all that land is going to be his and his people's. And they're going to become great nations. And so that's what the background is from this point forward, that he's finally back in where he needs to be. And then verse 16 says, And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. So this is his favorite wife, Rachel. And she's only had one child, which is Joseph so far. All right? Now she's in labor. And it came to pass, when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, and she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar upon her grave, which is the pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day. So we see here that Rachel finally gave birth to the 12th son, okay, which is Benjamin. And I filled that little table out once again for you to let you see all the different sons and daughters that are mentioned. And if you notice, Leah had 6, and the rest of them combined had 6. But then Rachel passed away during childbirth. And the thing about it is that when you start looking at it, she passed away there in Bethlehem, which is where Christ came from. That's where he was born. And her gravesite is well known many years later. I mean, Moses knows of it, okay? But not only Moses, look in 1 Samuel chapter 10, it says, when thou art departed from me today, then thou shalt find 2 men by Rachel's sepulchre. So it was a pretty good setup on where she passed away. I mean, they wanted to make sure she knew where it was at. They knew where it was at. And they shall say unto thee, the asses which thou wentest to seek are found, and lo, thy father hath left the care of the asses and sorroweth for you, saying, what shall I do for my son? So we know that a long time after this, everybody still knew where Rachel was buried and passed away. And you can imagine the heartbreak. Now, from Israel's standpoint, he's got through all these troubles, and he finally is saying, I'm headed back to where I need to be, and all of a sudden, his wife passes away during childbirth. I mean, you can just see how, from the standpoint of us, we're finally trying to say we're finally trying to get back to where God wants us, and then all of a sudden something like that it's like pulling the rug right out from underneath you. And yep. Yep. Yeah, it's the trials of this life will put you into a lot of situations that you don't plan to get on, but you never know when they're coming. But it'd be hard, but he kept focused. And notice, people start saying notice what it says there. Notice in verse 16. Verse 18 there. It says, and it came to pass as her soul was in departing. Aren't you glad God made us to where our soul's going to live forever? I mean, the soul was going away. Her body was dying, but basically her soul was still going to be living forever and ever. And we have that privilege today that if we've been born again, that we're going to be living forever with Christ. And that soul is just going to basically go on home where the body's just going to go. Oh, yeah. Because her soul was departing. And, they say a lot of times, I think what you were saying there about soul sleep, a lot of them, they say that the grave is just, that's basically the place of Jehovah's Witness said that's hell. And the thing about it is that, no, the soul's departed. No matter which way you go, it's gone. All this is a carcass. It's just a temple to live in until God either calls us home, or basically we leave this life and depart to our abode that we would never want to go there if we knew what it was like to go to hell from that standpoint. But we got this here, and Benjamin's son means son of my right. His name means son of my right hand, which implies Rachel was his right hand person. Okay, from that standpoint, that's the way Israel named him. So we get down to verse 21, and we have the full 12 tribes born now. And Israel journeyed and spread his tent toward the Tower of Edar. And it came to pass, when Israel dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah his father's, one of his father's concubine. And Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. It's sort of, it wasn't good for somebody to sleep with their stepmom back then, and it still wasn't any good over in 1 Corinthians, because that's where basically 1 Corinthians, I think it's 5, right, basically says, no, when Paul basically chastises Corinthians for doing the same thing. So Reuben was the oldest, and he went in and lay with one of the slaves, or one of the servants that was Leah's, and basically went in there with that. But then it sort of just turns away from it. It don't give a whole lot more detail on it. But at this point forward, you find Moses referring to Jacob as Israel. Then all of a sudden you see the sons of Jacob were 12. It says the sons of Leah. And here they're renamed again: Reuben and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. And these are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Pandarim. Now, the thing about it is, it says born to him in Pandarim, but Benjamin was born a little bit later. Okay? So we see there, and Jacob came unto Isaac his father, unto Mamre, unto the city of Arba, which in Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned. And the days of Isaac were 180 years. 180 years was Isaac, that's how long he was. And Isaac gave up the ghost. And again, there, you're giving up the ghost. In other words, it's leaving, but he's dying. And died and gathered into his people, being old and full of days. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. So basically, Jacob was back home to help bury Isaac. And also Esau came back up and helped bury him as well, even though Jacob had basically not followed Esau back to Seir. So we see now that we have those situations going. And the thing about it is that when you sit down and think about it, Reuben laid with Bilhah, his stepmother. Simeon and Judah, well, Simeon and Levi is the ones that went over there and killed all those people over there in the last chapter that we had. So basically you had them basically committing that situation. So ultimately I think Judah is the one that actually gets the birthright from that standpoint. But Isaac dies being 180, and I think he was the last one that was of that age before they started getting younger and younger. So from that standpoint. So Esau settled in Seir, but he came back home to help bury his dad. So even though they were separated and everything, I think it was somewhat, the family had basically somewhat mended itself, okay? So now we get down into verse 36, and let me tell you something. Family issues that you have with family are the hardest things to get resolved. They really are. I mean, for some reason that those family issues, when you get sideways or something with them, they're the hardest ones to get resolved. So be aware of that. Chapter 36, and like I said, this one is pretty much full of a lot of genealogy, and will tell you this, that I probably can't read half of these names before we get started, but we will try. Now, these are generations of Esau. So it goes back and says, who all was Esau? Who is Edom? And so when you hear the word Edomites, that's Esau. Okay? So he's basically now referred to as Edom as well. Esau took his wives of the daughters of Canaan. Remember, he was disappointed Isaac and Rebekah because he took a wife out of the land rather than going back to the homeland. So Ada, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite, and Aholibah, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zibeon, the Hivite, and Bashemath, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Nebajoth. Now Ishmael was his uncle, right? You know, basically you got Esau was born of Isaac. Well, Isaac's brother is Ishmael, so he's marrying his first cousin, okay? And Ada bare. Now the thing about it is, this is not all of his wives, okay? You see here Ada, Abimelech, and Bashemath. Well, back over in Genesis chapter 26 and 34, you see Judith, and Genesis 28:9, you also see Mahalath. So basically he had 5 wives, best we can tell, all right? But here we start going through his kids and also his grandkids. And Ada bare Esau, Eliphaz, however you pronounce that, and Bashemath bare Reuel. Now there's a good chance Eliphaz is the guy that talked to Job. Remember? Over in Job chapter 2, basically you have that same name popping up over there as one of the people that came in to try to console Job. So there's a good chance that that's who that is. Okay? But we don't know for sure, but basically that's the only 2 that's mentioned from that standpoint. Job may be the oldest book written, but it may not be the oldest time frame. Of course, from the standpoint, he had to come from Adam just like everybody else. But the book of Job was written before Moses wrote these 5 books. And then it says that Bashemath bare Reuel, and Lobamah bare, like I said, Jeush, and Jalem, and Korah. And these are the sons of Esau, which were born unto him in the land of Canaan. And Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all the persons of his house and his cattle and all the beasts and all his substance which he had got in the land of Canaan, and went into the country from the face of his brother Jacob. For the riches were more than they might dwell together. In the land wherein they were strangers could not bear them because of their cattle. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. So what you see is that Esau was already in Seir, right? That's where basically he told Jacob to follow him to. And so he apparently brought all of his belongings, everything else from there, back over to where his dad was. And he'd probably been there for a little while to actually bring all those rather than just go for a short period of time. So he basically brought all those over there. Then, of course, Jacob got there, and, of course, the land wasn't able to bear both of them, no different than Abraham and Lot. Basically, they had to split. So we see here that he had to basically split again because there was just not enough pasture land to actually handle both of them. And so he goes back to Seir. There's going to be a little thing we'll read about that in just a minute. But and these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Ada, the son of Esau; Reuel, the son of Bashemath, the wife of Esau. Very repetitive. And the sons of Eliphaz, the were Teman. Now this is his grandchildren. Omar, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz, and Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. And these are the sons of Reuel, Nahath, Zerah, Shema, and Mizah. These were the sons of Bashmuth, Esau's wife. And these are the sons of Aholamabah, I can't pronounce those names, the daughter of Anna, and the daughter of Zibeon, Esau's wife, and she bare to Esau Jeush, and Jalum, and Korah. Now, he goes back and refers to these again, but he uses the word duke in front of them, okay? And so that means basically chief. So basically a lot of these were actually rulers of the areas they were in, okay? So in verse 15, these were the dukes of the sons of Esau, the sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn of Esau, Duke Teman, Duke Omar, Duke Zepho, Duke. So he goes through and repeats those with dukes in front of them. And like I said, I've already challenged myself on reading them one time. If anybody else can read them, I'll let you. Then it gets down to verse 20. These are the sons of Seir, the Horite, who inhabited the land, Lotan and Shobal and Zibeon and Anna. Now Seir is where Edom and Esau ended up, right? And Doshan and Ezer and Dishan. These are the dukes of the Horites and the children of Seir in the land of Edom. And the children of Lotan were Hori and Heman, and Lotan's sister was Timnah. And the children of Shobal were these, Alvan, Manah, Sabal, Shebal, and Onman. And these are the children of Zibeon. I'm sorry, but I'm terrible at these names. And verse 25, and the children of Anna were these, Dishon and Elomada, the daughter of Anna. And these are the children of Dishon, Hamdan, Eshman, Ethron, and Cheran. And the children of Ezer are these, Balaam and Zervan. And you say, and when you get down verse 30, it says Duke Dishon, Duke Ezer, Duke Dishon. These are the dukes that came of Hori among the dukes in the land of Seir. And you ask your question, why does God put all that in there? And you sort of start thinking, because you don't see it much anymore. But the thing about it is that I started wondering that myself, why would he put that level of detail in here? But then again, when you start thinking about archaeology, the archaeology has uncovered enough information to show that these were actually there during that time frame. So it actually helps confirm the Bible's correct. Okay? So when you start thinking about, because there was a lot of organized mining of copper in that land, and that's been proven through archaeology all the way back to this time frame. And when you start thinking about organized mining of copper in multiple places at the same time, and it was being consistent, that means somebody was over it. Okay? So that's, and it just dawned on me that that's probably one of the reasons why God put that little detail in here. So you could actually confirm that the Bible is true no matter what, even by man's, because a lot of times today they want to throw it away. But when the history and the archaeology supports everything that's in here, you can't dispute it. Man will try, but they can't. And verse 31 says that these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. In other words, before Saul was a king, you had all these kings. Okay? And they were in it together to do the things they did. And Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of this city was Dinhabah. And Bela died, and Jobab, son of Zerah, and Bozrah reigned in his stead, and Jobab died, and Hosham in the land of Timnah reigned in his stead, and Hosham died, and Haran, and we keep going down through the kings that lived in that time frame. Midian in the field of Moab reigned in his stead, and the name of the city was Avith, and Hadad died, and Samlah. So we keep seeing that they had successor kings in those time frames. In verse 40 it says, and these are the names of the dukes that came of Esau, according to their families after their places by their names: Duke Timnah, Duke Avlah, Duke Jerus, Duke Abinadab, Duke Elah, Duke Panan, Duke Kenaz, Duke Teman, Duke Mibzar, Duke Magdalil, Duke Iman. And I'm sorry, but I'm terrible at these things. According to their habitations in the land of their possession, he is Esau, the father of the Edomites. So when you start reading through that and get all the way down through there, you start seeing that, like I said, that all that's there. But Seir is one of the places where that the people remember the giants back from Genesis chapter 6 that came into the land, and basically from there, take a look. Notice that Seir means rugged, and look in Deuteronomy chapter 2. It's on your notes there on page 223. Verse 1, it says, then we turned and took our journey into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. This is when the nation of Israel was coming out and fixing to head into the wilderness. By the way of the Red Sea, as the Lord spake unto me, and we compassed Mount Seir many days. So it was a known place even when the Israel came out 400 and something years later, all right, after they went down into Egypt. So notice what it says. And we compassed Mount Seir many days, and the Lord spake unto me, saying, you have compassed this mountain long enough. Turn you northward, and command thou the people, saying, you are to pass through the coast of your brethren, the children of Esau. So that's basically Israel's brethren, people of Esau, which dwelt in Seir, and they shall be afraid of you. In other words, here's 400 and something years later, okay? And they're afraid of the nation of Israel when they're coming out of there. But Esau basically overtook Seir, okay? Notice what happens. It says, take ye good heed unto yourselves, therefore. The Emmons dwelt therein in times past. Well, who's the Emmons? A people great and many and tall as the Anakims, which also were accounted giants as the Anakims. Esau married into them. Okay? You know, because he married of that land. And so he married into those people, but he ended up conquering them from that standpoint. But notice what it says. But the Moabites called them Enomims. The Horms also dwelt in Seir before time, but the children of Esau succeeded them, and they were destroyed them from before them, and dwelt in their stead, as Israel did unto the land of possession, which the Lord gave unto them. So he intermarried with them, and so more than likely that's where the giants basically still were at that time. So you read that and you start saying, well, you never know what Esau got married into, but more than likely there was still some pretty good sized folks there. Because we hear that later when David had to get Goliath and his 4 brothers. So it's sometimes you get into those and find the little details that you just don't normally see. So anyway, it's about 20 till, so it's a good stopping point to stop at chapter 36. But next week, we'll try to get into a little more interest with Joseph and his type being Christ and things of that sort. You've got your notes there. You can sort of study them a little ahead of time. But the coincidences that some people say of what Joseph was as a type of Christ versus how many different things that can actually be parallel to him, they can't be coincidence. I mean, some people have chronicled over 150 consistencies between them. And people writing the New Testament would write something down. Well, it matched something close to what Joseph happened. So even when God was writing the book of Genesis, he was basically saying, just like Christ said, you've got the law, and Moses wrote of me. Okay, so anyway, we'll try to get into that a little bit next week. Anybody got any questions, anything before we dismiss for this morning? Sorry, that was a lot of... oh, well, Brother Scott, would you dismiss us in word of prayer?